if I get an early pick, I'm just taking names.
There's no point to take Strat, right? Like, is there a point to take Strat in a best ball format?
And you have changed your name to Stephen A. Swift. You are the leader. You are a different group of Swifties.
And I think Jameson Williams is going to outscore. He's going to outpoint Amon-Ra St. Brown this year.
The stats are kind of fugazi, man.
Come on.
Let's go.
There's like 50 feet of shit and then Kyler and Edwards.
I think it's a buying opportunity for the Chiefs, actually.
You ever see me take Bryce Young as a quarterback, even as a backup? Smack me when you see me in Vegas.
I'm all about Devontae Adams.
They're hurting their own team. You could just turn around later and take, Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin.
I just go, what the fuck are they doing at running back?
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to a prime time FFPC Main Event live draft coverage. I'm your host, Aiden LaQuarrie. Joining me as always, comprising the three Goombas, Jake Venuti, Dave Tripoli, and our special guest for tonight, the CEO of Fantasy Points, Scott Barrett. Scott, thank you so much for hopping on with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Looks like we got a little pause to start the draft, so
I didn't show up.
So I'm gonna start with kind of, Scott, I want to ask you more maybe general drafting question. Obviously, you're a volume drafter, but I want to ask you, for those people who are competing in the main event, who maybe get early picks, the 1, 2, 3 overall in the draft, I want to ask you, what's your opinion and your advice to them on a strategy for someone who gets an early pick, who does volume drafts, versus someone who maybe is only drafting in 1 or 2 main events, 1 or 2 big gorillas? What's the difference entering a draft with the top pick, top 2 pick, top 3 pick in those two different scenarios?
Yeah, I would say get cocky. I would say draft arrogant. I think it's a really big advantage this year, the 101, the 102, maybe more so than I can remember. Back in the days when my first ever fantasy league, I was a kid in my stepdad's league. It was like the heyday of LaDainian Tomlinson, and maybe there was a second guy like a Priest Holmes, Sean Alexander, but really it was, like snake style drafting was broken. It's like let's just go to an auction league, because like whoever was drafting first and took LaDainian Tomlinson is probably going to win. Like that's upside wins championships. That's how fantasy football is a power law game, and so I would just really, if I had that advantage, and I would treat it like a massive advantage, like I think if you're in the 112, like certainly last year, it felt like you were playing behind the 8 ball, so you needed to be more aggressive, take some more home run swings. But with this, I don't know. I would really just kind of build my roster as though that assumption's right, that Jahmyr Gibbs is sort of, breaking leagues to some extent this year.
Turpa, similar question to you. Obviously, again, you're a volume player, and I know you've talked about it at times in terms of roster builds, but you also talk about it in a more general setting, maybe later in the draft, various players. Specifically, if you have a top, again, 2, 3 pick, volume drafter versus someone drafting maybe only a couple times, how much are you differentiating your pick early on between the Gibbs, Bijan, Jamar Chase as we start off this draft? If you are drafting,
not at all. I'm very aggressive where I think if I think I have an edge, I'm just going to go all out and maximizing it. And to me, it's clear as day, 101 Jahmyr Gibbs, 102 Bijan, fall off. And so I'm just going to do that in every single draft, even if I draft 50 teams.
Turk, what are your thoughts on that? 50 teams, you get a bunch
1,000% agree. I mean, It's Gibbs Robinson. You might throw a Chase in there once, but that's about it for me. To me, it's
even Chase. Like I, if I'm being honest with myself, I think I like Puka more.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, why not? So Jamar Chase has outscored the Rams wide receiver 1 in only 1 career season.
Any concerns about Puka's health?
Any concerns about Joe Burrow's health? The dude can't stay healthy.
100%.
It's fascinating. Are you surprised you're not seeing that more than Scott? Because pretty much with consistency, Jamar is going above Puka. Are you surprised that you haven't maybe seen that, the Puka over Jamar kind of catch on more than?
Yeah, we might see that in August, but yeah, I mean, to me, it's really 50-50. And like the only reason it's not a super strong lean on Puka is I think they take him off the field inside the red zone in 13 personnel, which is like a weird, like little hiccup I have that no one else is talking about. But if that weren't a weird little thing for me, I'd clear as day Puka 3. Right now it's like a coin flip between them. Where are we drafting from, by the way?
We're not. None of us are drafting from.
We're just watching. Okay.
We're just watching and admiring.
See, we have it easy. We are not participating in the $1 million chase. We're simply commentating and analyzing and potentially making fun of teams.
Another thing to add on to the Puka pick, and I do agree with you, Scott, is that I think some people might worry about Puka's touchdown upside, especially with Adams there. They don't really use Puka in the red zone. Like, obviously,
right. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know why more people aren't talking about it specifically as an advantage for Davante Adams, who's going pretty cheap, is that last year, everyone talked about the Rams 13 personnel. When they were in the red zone, which is when they called it the most often, they took Puka off the field, put Adams on there. And it makes sense for why they did that. We have a stat, average separation score, also separation win rate. And if you look at all players by red zone win rate last year, it was like Davante Adams 41%. And the next closest was all the way down at, 19%. So like the dude is a historically great separator, specifically getting open early, quickly in routes, which is what you need inside the red zone. And so, I think that really does kind of hurt Puka. But I mean, even so, look at his production last year versus anyone else. Look at it next to Jamar Chase, and he was the wide receiver one last year. It's kind of weird that.
Right. Also, last year Adams had 60 catches and 14 touchdowns, so over 23% of his catches were touchdowns, and it's going to be the same this year. He's one of the best red zone targets in the league.
Well, people hate drafting him this year.
I don't know why. If you're getting him as your wide, he's going as long as he plays 14 plus games, he's going to finish as a wide receiver too. Why are people scared to draft him in the 5th round? I don't know.
The stat I had was like, if you look at him in games, he had a snap share over 50% last year. He was like wide receiver 4 by XFP per game, wide receiver 7 by fantasy points per game, and he's being drafted as what? One of you guys tell me.
He goes in like the 5th round.
Here, I can get you the exact one. Davante Adams has been going at
like mid-5th.
Yeah, right around that range.
Last 2 weeks in the main event, Davante Adams has been as wide receiver 27 at the 5'10".
Where does Evans go? Because he's a similar guy.
Evans has been going a little bit wide receiver 26, right next to each other, 508.
Interesting. I'll be honest, I like both of those old guys this year.
I agree. I love Evans. People hate Evans just because they're worried about the injury, but everybody.
I give the slight edge to Adams, but I do like Evans as well. But drafting, like, I see some people draft. I'm sorry, I know people love Carnell Tate, but I see some people drafting Carnell Tate and BTJ over Adams. I just don't know why. I don't get it.
No slander of Carnell Tate on this show.
No slander, but like I'm taking Adams over him 10 out of 10 times.
I mean, we talked about Evans last show, I believe, in specifically comparing him to 2025 Davante Adams. It's like, why can't he just become
that's his
monster in the red zone? And he's been dominating training camp by all reports in San Francisco in the red zone.
Kyle Shanahan saw what McVay did last year with Adams, and he copied it. Went out, got a big body receiver in Evans. Purdy's going to target him in the red zone. They're going to be missing, Kittle for part of the season. Pearsall's a slot guy, can't stay healthy. Kirk's also a slot guy, right? So Evans should be a big focal point in the red zone.
Scott, I want to ask you a question. Team 7, Team 9 both start running back. Which build do you start? Which anchor 2 running backs? Genty and A-Chain out of the 7 spot, or CMC and Omarion Hampton out of the 9 spot? You have to choose one.
Can I go CMC and Achane?
Well, I mean,
because I think they both took the wrong running back there. I think CMC should go first, and I think Achane should go before Hampton. But that's what I would have done. So
okay, fair enough. Turp, I'll give you the same question. If you have to choose one of those, Genty, A-Chain, or CMC Hampton to start your draft?
I mean, I would love to flip it, A-Chain and Hampton, and then McCaffrey. Man, if I had a gun to my head, it would be Genty and A-Chain.
Okay.
But
okay.
I mean, I'm a Genty guy, so. And I still, Scott, I'd like to get your take on this when it comes to McCaffrey. Everybody hates him. Everybody's not drafting him this year. Nobody wants to touch him for all the reasons that you've heard a million times. Are you one of those guys?
No, I love Chris. I mean, the dude is the most valuable player in fantasy whenever he stays healthy. And by all accounts, he's healthy. So, yeah, I mean, this is like, let's not lose sight of the fact that this is a tournament style format with $1 million grand prize where you want to be swinging for the fences.
Yep.
Back in, 2019, I had CMC as like my 101 in a landslide. And I had the top scoring non-McCaffrey team it was the Football Guys championship at the time. But like, that's who CMC was. He was like an impossible to win without asset. And he still, to this day, at this day and age, has that upside where, like, I know they drafted a running back who sucks, by the way. They drafted a running back. They can say all they want about taking McCaffrey off the field. The 49ers, when CMC was on the field last year, were a top 3 offense. When he was off the field, they were a bottom 7 offense. And he contributes in terms of wins and losses, even when he's not healthy, even when he's not touching the ball, so long as his mere presence is there on the field, because defenses have to play them differently, which sets up mismatches for George Kittle, for Mike Evans. And so they can say all they want about, reducing his workload. If they're trying to win games, that's not going to be the case. And again, Christian McCaffrey is the closest thing we've seen to LaDainian Tomlinson since LaDainian Tomlinson. And so it's like it feels like a coin flip, and maybe it's a weighted coin that's like 60-40. But it's like 60% chance he finishes top 3 at the position in fantasy points per game, 40% chance he's out for the year. In this format, it's still not obvious to me that we shouldn't be taking him 3rd overall.
So to the comment, Adam Hahn's comment, even if CMC stays healthy, a dip is coming after 450 touches. I think that's baked into his ADP. Anyone coming off 450 touches in previous years is probably going top 5, top 6, right? People are pushing McCaffrey down because they think, his workload's going to regress, which I think the same thing. But even if he has 400 touches, he's still worth a 1.9 pick. And if you're worried about his injury, you have to take McCaffrey, someone who's going to touch the ball 400 plus times if they're healthy. You can't just let him like slide in every draft.
Right.
I want to ask you, I got a couple friends, they are Raiders fans, who are texting me right now, and they're Brock Bowers at 4, and they're all excited. Now, again, FFPC Main Event is tight end premium, which is why Bowers. But Scott, are you buying Bowers bounce back? He's been rising. I mean, this was a guy when these mains, big gorillas, baby gorillas started. We were seeing Brock Bowers at the 1-2 turn right next to Trey McBride. That gap has widened. Bowers has established himself as the tight end 1. He goes at the 104, the highest he's gone in a main event over the last 2 weeks. Can you give me your thoughts on Brock Bowers that high, and then maybe compare him in your personal rankings to the other top tight ends in Trey McBride, Colson Loveland, and I'll throw Tyler Warren into the mix as he just got drafted?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you how I think this should go. I think it should go Gibbs, Bijan, Chase, Nakua, CMC, and then Bowers. It feels like, but if you're a McBride drafter, it might feel like a bit of a win, just because, like, I mean, he just had like the 3rd or 4th best fantasy tight end season ever, and you can get him, nearly a full round later. But I mean, I would have it that way. I would have Bowers ahead of McBride comfortably, especially until like this Jacoby Brissett situation shakes out. If I was guaranteed Jacoby Brissett starts the full season, I might take McBride over Bowers, but like just the risk of getting Carson Beck and just even the risk of not getting Brissett, because that was a major reason why he was so successful. Brissett, dating back to college, targets tight ends at the highest rate in the league. But with Bowers, yeah, I mean, like, this is one of the greatest tight end prospects of all time. This is like almost a guaranteed Hall of Famer. He could, break the tight end receiving yardage record. This like wouldn't shock me. You have a genius play caller, a better supporting cast. And if you just took out those those Brace Bowers weeks last year, he was putting up low end wide receiver one production outside of the tight end premium format. So you get that here too. I will say, like, the NFL people I've talked to, Ryan Pagnetti, former director of analytics for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Brett Whitefield, our film guy, they both have the same concern, which is just that this team doesn't have anyone but Bowers. And it's just really easy for a defense to neutralize you when your top option is a tight end. It's really easy to neutralize that tight end. You just stick a cornerback on. And so what both of them said is, like, if they trade for a Chris Olave, like, Brock Bowers is going nuclear. But until then, this actually isn't a great setup for him. You know, people drool over the lack of target competition, but in this instance, this might actually be a hindrance.
Terp, I want to real quick go to the back end of the second round. You know, as I always say, we talk about a lot of these guys over the course of dozens of shows each year. But a guy we haven't talked about too much, Nico Collins, goes as wide receiver 9. Is he an interesting name that you're targeting kind of at that 2-3 turn? Does the Texans offense have another leap? I mean, a couple of years ago, obviously, Nico Collins was fantastic. And then it's been a little bit disappointing, which has coincided with the Texans' offensive downfall. A lot of that, you could argue, is due to the porous offensive line, disappointment from C.J. Stroud in years 2 and 3. Collins has his moment, also been banged up. What do you make of Nico Collins? And again, is that a name that you're maybe targeting at that round 2-3 turn?
I don't mind him. I like guys more than him. So far, obviously, C.J. Stroud out of the regression last year wasn't great. O-line was terrible. We all remember all that. But there's been a lot of positive press about the other guys so far. You know, Higgins, Noel, obviously the return of Tank Dell, which we're all kind of excited about from a football perspective. I don't know if he's ever going to be the Tank Dell of old. There's also a lot of guys there. So when it comes to Nico, I like him as a player. There's guys, Drake London, I'm obviously taking over him. Rice, if, things are peachy there in Kansas City, I'm taking over him, which we don't kind of know right now. Is he going to be healthy? Is his head going to be on straight? Is he going to, do anything else crazy with the law? I'm taking Olave. I'm taking Zay Flowers. I'm probably taking Devonta Smith over him.
Jake, what are your thoughts on Nico Collins?
I just think he has limited upside because Stroud is just not a good quarterback. But I do think he's a safe, you're going to get out of him, probably 80 catches, a little over 1,000 yards, 7 or 8 touchdowns. Obviously, there's guys like Olave, Flowers, Devonta Smith who do have more upside, but I think that, if you're trying to play it safe, then you just go Nico.
Scott, I want to ask you a name that Jake actually just mentioned. I think if you ask a lot of fantasy players who finished as wide receiver 7 last year in fantasy, not a lot of them would say Flowers. He's been rising up boards. He's going as wide receiver 12 right now. Just been slowly moving up. I think it's not inconceivable that come late August, September, you could kind of see him at the 2-3 turn. It just may be dependent on, who the drafter prefers. But what are your thoughts on Zay Flowers, that Ravens offense? Do you see an ability for him to finish as wide receiver 1 again, which is what he's getting drafted as now?
No, I don't think so. And let's not lose sight of the fact that each of the previous 2 seasons, he wasn't even a top 36 wide receiver by fantasy points per game. Not really a guy who scores touchdowns. And I think a lot of his production comes, it's sort of fraudulent manufactured touches. It's a lot of screens. It's a lot of checkdowns. It's a lot of busted coverage. And so a lot of those things I attribute to Todd Monken, who I thought was an exceptional play caller. And, he's even talked about it this year with Casey Concepcion is, this is a role in his offense, the Zay Flowers role, the peppered with screens role. And I kind of always thought he was an overrated talent. He's sort of like, I don't know, like Golden Tate-esque, but and so, yeah, I've just never really been a huge fan of his. I have some concern. Oh, the other thing, by the way, was he ran the highest percentage of routes with fewer than 3 wide receivers on the field, which is just like an efficiency cheat code. So I think he's probably going to lose that too with Monken leaving. Monken always loves his heavy personnel. So it's just a confluence of factors for a player I never really liked.
Okay. Jake, you had told me, you said there was literally it's very rare that you're ever like, we come in with this show script per se, but you said there's only one player you want to talk about. When he gets drafted, send it to you. Ladd McConkey. You have a take about Ladd McConkey, and I want you, the show is yours right now, please.
So last year, obviously, when they signed Keenan Allen, I faded Ladd. And every time on the show I say, I got a lot of crap for that because I knew once they signed Keenan Allen, Ladd was going to get taken out of the slot, and that's where he thrived in 2024. And people laughed, and they were like, no, he's still the best receiving option, blah, blah, blah. And look what happened. Now they obviously don't have Allen anymore, and Ladd is going to go back to the full-time slot role. I have a lot of trust in Mike McDaniel as a new OC, and I was reading a couple of beat reports the other day that Herbert is now, I don't know, obviously I'm not an NFL coach, but from what I was reading, he's now aligned with his left foot forward in his stance, which means he can snap and fire the ball away within, seconds. So obviously if that's going to be his new stance and he's trying to get the ball out of his hands quick, the ball is going to go to Ladd because Ladd has the best footwork of any receiver on that team to do slant, safes, whatever. So I was already in on Ladd before, but just hearing that, they want to get the ball to Herbert's hands quicker, in my mind, that defaults to the ball going to Ladd.
Are we sure Keenan Allen's not going back there?
I mean, you got to move on from the guy at some point.
Why would you move on when he was so damn good? He was still separating. He was still commanding a 20% plus target share. He has clear proven rapport with Justin Herbert. I don't know.
I mean, the Chargers just they need to change something up. They need to get to the playoffs. They need to get to the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying
they need their offensive line to stay healthy.
Well, yeah, right, exactly. But I don't think that Mike McDaniel necessarily needs or wants Keenan Allen. He has Ladd. He has Quentin Johnson. He has Trey Harris. Are they just gonna, they drafted Trey Harris pretty high last year. They're just gonna boot him to the curb or Keenan Allen again. You need to, at some point you need to move on and just play your guys. But we'll see.
Keenan Allen's running the same playbook where he just doesn't want to go through the early training camp. So he'll trot out there.
He's not going to go sign. The thing about Keenan Allen and why I like, this is way off topic, but why I like drafting him is because he's not just going to go somewhere to play football. He's going to go somewhere where he can, obviously the Chargers seem like the best fit just for what Scott said about the rapport with Herbert, but he's just not going to go play in Miami. It's just not going to, he's going somewhere where he's going to be able to, compete.
It does feel like if he's going back, he would go back to
I think Kansas City makes sense. I think.
Well, he said last year he's either going to retire or there's only 2 teams, 1 city he would go to. Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So maybe the Rams are in play too, which would be wild. But I kind of think it's Chargers or bust for him.
Question in the chat for you, Scott. All caps, ask Scott what he thinks of Devontae Smith. Want to hear him crush Terp's dreams.
Ooh, I don't know what your dreams are, Terp. Where is he going? Where did he go?
Third round. 308, wide receiver 13.
Well, I like him more than Olave. I like him more than Flowers. I thought I didn't like him, but I like him more than those guys.
Dreams are good.
I have some concerns. I really like this new play caller. I think he's a big upgrade. People keep talking about Devonta Smith's splits with A.J. Brown on and off the field. And it's really confusing to me that that's the argument people are making for why they need to go all in on Devonta Smith. And yet Dallas Goedert's an absolute afterthought since Devonta Smith came into the league, or over the last 2-3 seasons, in games that A.J. Brown didn't play, Dallas Goedert averaged more fantasy points per game. This is in non-tight end premium, so certainly true in tight end premium. And then even if you want to look at plays where A.J. Brown is off the field and Devonta Smith is on it and Dallas Goedert is on it, it's Goddard who has the higher yards per route run, which is crazy. And so it makes you think, why would that be the case? And I think part of it is skinny Batman's a little too skinny. And no, seriously, he really struggles against bigger physical cornerbacks. They shake him off his route. He really struggles against press coverage. He had the biggest discrepancy between press yards per route run and non-press yards per route run last year. And so that's just like a minor concern I've had in the back of my head. But like I said, I like him more than Flowers and Olave. So certainly not a hater either.
Another question for you, Scott. I gotta find it now. AJ Pierce said, "Hey Scott, I remember one of the last things you said after the 2025 season was you're going to take a real closer look at players behind bad O lines. Texans are projected bottom 10% O line, and then Monty. I'm assuming he's talking to the David Montgomery question of this is David Montgomery's going in the 4th round, despite a possibly bad offensive line. So, what are your thoughts on maybe that theory that you were going to examine some more, and then related into David Montgomery?"
Just shout out to that guy. Thanks for consuming my content, remembering what I said in January, because I wish I remembered that. I forgot about that. I'm working on my rankings now, my draft guide, trying to get that out before August 1st, usually a couple days late on that, but I'm working on that. Yeah. And so like I have a checklist of, different reminders I've left myself over the past however many months as I worked through that. But yeah, that was supposed to be one of my big takeaways from the 2025 season. And I see myself breaking that. We just dropped our offensive line rankings, which were written by a former NFL scout. Scott DiBenedetto spent 10 years with the Cleveland Browns, specializing in offensive line and defensive line play. He got crushed. People did not like his rankings. But I mean, it's just that's something that's really burned me. Like GT should have smashed if you just count his targets and carries, but that offensive line was bad enough to really hold him back. I will say, I want to break the rules with Monty. So much hinges on him being the true alpha bell cow, being the true, getting the catching the passes, even though Woody Marks, who I think stinks, was good in the first half of last season as the passing down specialist. But I just think David Montgomery is he was brought in as like a pseudo mascot, like the heart and soul of the offense, like everything they want to do, just smash mouth football. He's a dog. And I just think he's a super underrated pass catcher. Just 2 years ago, he led the position in yards per route run. Over the last 3 years and combined, I think he's top 10 at the position in yards per target, yards after the catch per reception, and yards per route run. And so I think he's just really underrated. And like we all would think a lot more highly of him had he not had the misfortune of sharing a backfield with the current 101.
Mike Melberg in the chat, a 2024 Fantasy Pros at the time, it was called now the Big Gorilla Champion, mentioned that the Eagles' week 15 to 17 schedule is horrible.
Not great.
Goes Seattle, Houston, San Francisco.
Not great.
A broader question is, one, how concerned are you about that? Because who knows how that teams will turn out, but more than likely, at minimum, Seattle and Houston are going to have extremely good defenses. How much are you factoring in week 15, 16, 17 schedules? As Scott mentioned, this is a tournament sprint. Weeks 15 through 17 are that, championship rounds for the $1 million grand prize. How are you factoring those in when you're drafting in the main event in the summer? And then specifically, how concerned are you about the Eagles?
I might dock them a little bit, but I don't overcomplicate it a lot with that. I mean, playing against Houston is obviously not something you want to do in the sprint. The best defense in football. Obviously, we know that. Seattle's no slouch, and then San Francisco, not bad at all.
Mm-hmm. Things also change a lot during the season. Like this happens every year.
Every year, like we always see, like the top defense, and let's not at all downgrade the Texans, but every year people draft the top defense, and at the end of the year, they're never the top defense. It's just a cycle every year. We've seen the Ravens defense. We've seen other defenses over the years that have got drafted way too high and then just have an average year. Do I think that's going to happen with the Texans? Probably not, but it's in the range of possibilities. So you can't really – I don't really overcomplicate it with that. I love Hurst. I love Smith, obviously being an Eagles fan. Goddard, as Scott mentioned, is a guy that me and Jacob talked about a lot this week about pretty much exactly what Scott said, a guy that kind of people just ignore. People don't talk about. People are just saying it's Devonta Smith this year. Obviously, A.J. Brown gone. They're talking about all that, and they're not talking about Goddard, which makes so much sense right now. I'm not worried about a lot. Eli Stowers, the rookie, and obviously Hollywood Brown, Wicks, and all those guys. Lemon, I like a lot, but he's still a rookie, so it's going to take some time. I don't really pay attention that much to. I look at it, but it's not going to change. I'm not going to not draft Devonta Smith or Jalen Hurts or Goddard because they play the Texans.
I think Goddard, Andrews, and Kelsey are like 3 tight ends that you pair with like a Likely, a Kincaid, someone like that, or even a Fannin, just to like protect yourself a little bit. Like, Kelsey, Goddard, and Andrews, they're safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kincaid, Likely, they still have their question marks. Likely new team. Kincaid failed us the last 2 years. We just don't know. But like, who's to say Goddard's not going to be a top 7, top 8 tight end, right? Or even higher.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Jake,
where he's being drafted is crazy.
Jake, questions are popping off in the chat. Thanks to everyone in there. We're going to try and get to all of them. So from Aaron Etheridge, a question to the panel, but Jake, I'm going to direct it to you. What's more likely to happen? Malik Neighbors is a 100 catch alpha receiver or an injury prone bust this season?
Oh, he's a complete fade for me. It's not, I just won't be making that click. I really don't care. We'd have to be like in the Adams range, BTJ range for me to even look at Neighbors. I just don't want to draft a receiver coming off the injury he had, probably going to start on the pup, then need the ramp up time. When's he going to be 100% healthy? Maybe I don't think he's even going to catch 60 passes, never mind 100, but he's pretty much a full fade for me this year.
Scott, there was a specific question for you from King2 Icon. Who's this year's 2025 JSN? And do you also foresee a bounce back year for Marvin Harrison Jr.? So 2 questions in one.
Yeah, man, I wish I knew who that was. I don't know if there is one. So I'm going to punt that question. What was the second one?
Do you see a bounce back year for Marvin Harrison Jr.?
This is one that Ryan Heath and I have fought each other on, and he makes a very persuasive argument. He thinks that if Marvin Harrison Jr. had stayed healthy last year, we would be drafting him in round 3. And I'm looking it up right now. I mean, he did run bad with injuries. He averaged 12.3 fantasy points per game when off the injury report. And he kind of missed out on that sweet spot in the second half with all the garbage time and the 2 wide receiver sets that we obviously saw Michael Wilson smash in. And it's like, we have to think Marv is more talented than Michael Wilson, right? Like, he was a top 10 draft pick. And my argument, my counter argument is the dude only has 2 good games in his entire career. He has 2 career 100-yard games. Meanwhile, without him, Michael Wilson last year looked like Jerry freaking Rice, averaging 140 yards per game. He was the wide receiver 2 in the second half last year. Wide receiver 2 or 3 by fantasy points per game, yards per game. And he looked incredible. And so already he has 3 times as many career good games as Marvin Harrison Jr. And so I just worry with this new regime coming in, if it isn't more of a meritocracy, which maybe hurts the Nepo baby Marvin Harrison Jr. And then on top of that, it's just, not an offense I'm very excited about. I talked about Carson Beck, but beyond that, you're losing Drew Petzig, who last year, Arizona's pass rate was the highest of any offense in at least a half decade. There's no way it's going to be that high again, right? So just a regression for the offense as a whole. Could be catastrophic risk if Carson Beck is starting. This guy had a round 6 grade by Brett Whitefield. So yeah, I'm not in on Marv, but I did think that Ryan makes a persuasive argument.
If you're going to take Marvin Harrison, though, this is probably the year, because 2 years ago he was going the 1-2 turn. Last year he was a 3rd round pick. Now you're getting him in the 7th.
But he sucked all those years. Maybe he was just a bad pick all those years.
He's not going to hurt you in the 7th round as your wide receiver 4. Right. You know what I mean? It's kind of worth he did average 14-ish points per game with Brissett last year.
I mean, and he was better when Michael Wilson obviously had that crazy run, but that primarily, if not all, came when Marvin Harrison wasn't playing.
I'm not even a Marvin Harrison guy, but when you're looking at comparing him to guys like Pittman, Lemon, DK, I'd rather just take a shot at the upside.
I think Pittman is awesome this year. I love Pittman. QJ too has.
To me, this team is.
QJ's been rising. QJ's been rising a ton. He's been rising up. This is actually kind of. I mean, we saw him. Fantasy Sopranos, I believe, took him at 601 in our live draft, Maine 2 weeks ago. So 708 is a bit later
for sure.
Which goes in lines kind of, Jake, obviously what you talked about with the Chargers. Turp, I want to ask you, Air Jeff in the chat said Team 12 is killing this draft. They also asked what draft this is. This is an FFPC main event. $2,200 entry, $1 million on the line, $6.5 million in the prize pool. But Turk, Team 12, your thoughts on their build so far?
I don't mind it. It's probably not what I would have done. I would have probably done something a little different. I know Taylor falling there is, I mean, you have the numbers up right in front of you. Taylor doesn't get to the second round literally ever.
Not very common. I mean,
I think he's going to be the guy that people are going to start getting, afraid to draft a little bit. Just obviously the unknown with Daniel Jones. Obviously, the reports come out that they're going to, take his workload back. I don't believe that when I see it. They don't have anyone behind him. He's the guy that I think is going to fall in the first round as we get closer to late August and Vegas and drafting live. Kyron Williams, we've had this conversation 100 times over. I know I'll probably get burned again, but I just don't draft him. I'll just draft Blake Corum a little later. Egbuka, Jameson Williams, no problems there. Lamar, I think he's going to have a really good bounce back year. Gainwell, we talked about as a guy that we all love, but Irving, things are starting to look a little bit more positive there. And then Travis Kelce, he's got married. Things are great in the Kelce thing, but he's getting older. But I think he has one more year in him. And you said last year, I think last week he finished tight end 7 last year. Was that correct? Tight end 6 or 7?
I believe.
I think it was 6 or 7. Whatever. It's a one-off, but that's not. When you can get a guy like that in the 8th round, I think you can do. Starting a team with Kelce, probably not something I would do. I would like the upside.
Tight end 4.
Likely.
Tight end 4 last year.
Oh, wow. The upside of Likely, the upside of Andrews, who I love this year, the upside of Kincaid healthy. I would take all of them over Kelce, but I don't think Kelsey's a bad pick. There's teams I like over 12, to be honest. It's kind of a boring team to me.
Scott, I got 2 questions for you. John David, a kind of a consistent debate on the show that John David loves to lead from the comment section is, Scott, who do you like better, Luther Burden or Rome Odunze?
I think there was at a point in this offseason, there was a devil's advocate argument for Rome Odunze where maybe as more of the outside wide receiver, he's for sure going to be the guy in heavy personnel. And then, or maybe that's more of a question mark with Luther. And then he really ran bad with injuries. His final year of college, he had a punctured lung and broken ribs, and he didn't miss a single game. That was what every talking head taught. He's a dog, he's going to find a way to play no matter what. And then his rookie season, he suffered a really bad, I think it was ankle injury in week 1, which kind of one of those injuries that kind of plagued him for almost the entire year. And then last year, he got off to this electric start in the first 5 weeks, and he looked like a league winner, and then he just completely fell off a cliff. He sucked. And it later came out, a little bit before that Ravens game, he picked up this really serious foot injury, and he tried to play through it, and it just didn't work. And so you could have made the argument this is a former top 10 overall pick, great offense, and he just ran bad with injuries. But then you had that quote where he was like, yeah, this is just my new normal. My foot doesn't work like it used to. And then you had DeAndre Hopkins, someone like
Allen
that.
Robinson.
Allen Robinson, thank you. Come out and say, I had the same thing and I was never the same after that. So it's I don't want the guy who's never been, the guy who I don't think is healthy and will ever be healthy again, and who kind of sucked his first 2 years. Give me the exciting Luther Burden, who Ben Johnson talks about is Sidney Sweeney. So give me Luther Burden.
Rome's also he's the 3rd best receiving talent on that team after Burden and Loveland. And Burden, I was reading some stuff that he's going to be used like Amon-Ra was when Ben Johnson was in Detroit. Last year, Burden was he led the team in design targets, and then also Loveland down the stretch, he had a 25% target share the last 5 games. So they're going to put the ball in Burden and Loveland's hand, and I think Rome's going to be an afterthought.
See, you tune into these shows because never could I ever expect it on my bingo card is Scott comparing Luther Burden to Sidney Sweeney, but that's why you watch. Scott, I got another question for you from AJ Pierce in the chat. It's actually led to a pretty big discussion in the chat, and it is this. Can we talk about Emeka Egbuka? I can't help but see the first month of 2025 season. Can that be the guy at the end of 2026 that you say maybe should put him higher? Or that is a question for Scott, he specified.
This is a really tough question. I said this on my podcast. I think my last 3 podcasts in a row, I said Emeka Egbuka is the toughest player for me in fantasy right now. I really, really struggle with it. And so like the way as an FFPC drafter this works is like, you know what? I just put him in my too hard pile right now. Like I can't even, I know I need to spend more time on it, but it's just really agonizing to me. You have Ben Solak saying this guy is going to lead the league in receptions this year. He was incredible first 4 or 5 weeks, and then he gets hurt, and then Baker Mayfield also gets hurt. So you just kind of have to throw out everything that came after that. But he scored the second or third most fantasy points by a rookie wide receiver through their first 5 games since the fall of the Berlin Wall. Just looked like amazing. And yeah, just write it off due to injury. He's playing the Z in Zach Robinson's offense. That was what Cooper Kupp played to great success. And he was miscast as the X. He really struggled against press coverage. He was more of a slot in college. And so you have all these things, but you also have at the tail end of last season, like he was basically the wide receiver 4. He was sharing wide receiver 3 duties 50-50 with Jalen McMillan. If Chris Godwin's fully healthy, which I didn't think was a real thing, but my injury experts I've talked to are really bullish on him. And they do like Jalen McMillan. I don't know. Like I said, I feel like this is one of the most important things to get right in drafts right now. And I like him more than Ladd. I like him more than Waddle. I like him more than Tet. But it's really tough for me. So maybe one of you guys has a good answer here.
Yeah, Terp, I want to hear your thoughts on Emeka Egbuka.
He's a guy I've been drafting a ton. I have backed off a little bit. Everything Scott said when it came to Jalen McMillan, I think Jalen McMillan is a good to not very good, is probably a little too high, but I feel like Baker Mayfield has a connection with Jalen McMillan. He just can't stay on the field. And obviously with Chris Godwin playing in the slot, if he's healthy, he's going to be around. And I know people don't like talking about Kate Otten, but he's still there too, and he's going to be annoying enough. There's a lot of guys. Now, you look at it from the other perspective, all the press is positive. They're going to move him around. He could be the Cooper Kupp of the offense. So, like, he's a very, very tough guy because, like, he's not moving up yet. And he's still at a range where, like, I feel like you can't ignore him. You can't fade him. Like, to me, that's just silly. I mean, the upside there is immense. All the press has been positive. But there are a lot of guys there. And, Baker, obviously in a contract year. Godwin, if he's 100% healthy, which it looks like he is, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of like in the middle too. Like, I have a ton of them early, and then I kind of slowed down. Will that pick back up? Probably, just because I like the hype of him. And guys with hype, he has that look about him, and I had him a bunch last year, so I experienced the highs and the lows of obviously early in the season where things were going absolutely amazing, and I was, counting $1 million till when he got hurt and things got a little sour. But I will take plenty of them. Will I be overweight, underweight? To be determined, but I'm probably, a little bit on the overweight side because where he's being drafted, I like him over Ladd. I like him over Waddle. I probably like Bird and McLaurin better. T. Higgins, in that offense, I like probably a little bit more, but I definitely like him over Tet. I like him over Garrett Wilson. I probably like him over George Pickens. So it's in that range. If you're picking at that, the end, I'll have enough.
I've shared it before. I mean, after week 5, he only had 2 weeks of double-digit points, 23 and then 10.
I blame the injury there. I mean,
the hamstring. It's just such a. I mean, as Scott said,
team kind of like was in a disaster zone for a while.
He was also asked to do a lot his rookie year.
No, it's just it's the starkest difference of that first 5 weeks versus how he finished the season, but all the factors that led to that finish. But is it somewhere in between? And then what does that look like?
I think he's a top 3 guy. You got to get right. Like if you look at him, you got to get him right. If you're wrong on him,
I was listening to Theo and Nelson on a pod the other day, I think, and they were saying if Egbuka's the weeks 1 through 5, if he did that weeks 12 through 17, where would he be getting drafted this year? Like how much higher
it would be
he
that? Yeah, I mean, it would be like the Amon.
probably the second, you know,
Right behind JSN, probably.
Right. It's just, you know, I'm not crazy about Ibuka. I would prefer Godwin 3-4 rounds later, but you know, I see the upside. It's just, I just think Godwin's going to remain in the slot like he was in 2024.
Yeah. But and finally healthy. I mean, we
like Scott said, the people are bullish on him in 2024. People were comparing him to the cup of the offense, and he was wide receiver 1 weeks 1 through 7. If he's fully healthy this year.
Yeah, you know, and he's hopefully recovered. I mean, he was never going to be fully healthy or even back to 100%.
9th round Godwin is crazy.
Right.
Jake, let's keep an NFC South question for you from Darren Etheridge. Thoughts on year 2 of Kellen Moore's offense? Can you put together some late round Saints stacks?
Yeah, I really like late round. I don't mind, you know, Vele, especially in best ball. Just, you know, as the wide receiver 3 in that offense, hopefully he catches a couple touchdowns. I also like Jawan Johnson. Obviously, I like Olave. I think they're going to probably push for, like, you know, top 5 most run plays in the league. The defense isn't that great. They're going to pass the ball a lot. They're going to run a fast-paced offense. I'm high on the Saints. Tyson worries me a little bit with the injury history, but I'm still high on Olave, even with the blood clots. Everything I've read is positive. I think he's going to be fine going into the season. But I think that, you know, grabbing a piece of that offense in most of your drafts is smart.
Yeah, I mean, I always forget that Olave had the blood cut because it's just never.
I have a question for Scott.
Wait, is that real or is that really just he wants a new contract?
No, I mean,
he had a pulmonary embolism in the final game of last year.
Yeah, so, and no one really heard about it
because they were out of it. It was like the weekend team. He's still not fully cleared as of June 11th.
Aiden, I have a question for Scott. We asked him on the show a bunch of times. Jordan Tyson or Carnell Tate?
Classic.
This
classic.
year only.
Yeah.
I would go Jordan Tyson. This was Ryan Heath's take. This was Chris Sims' take. This was some other ball knowers' take. It's that, with Jordan Tyson, the Saints can run the offense through him. And Olave can go back to being, the deep threat he was previously. And so that represents catastrophic risk to me regarding Chris Olave, and certainly some upside for Jordan Tyson, who's also in the better offense with probably the better play caller for sure, probably the better quarterback and offensive line. And so I think that gives me the edge, gives the edge to Tyson in my eyes.
Terp, I got a question for you from the chat. I believe it was King 2 Icon was asking. I don't have the exact question, but essentially is what are you making of here it is. It was Guy, excuse me. The Washington backfield, is Rachaad White the guy, or is this a full pass on the whole backfield?
It's definitely not a pass. I think it's a buying opportunity. I like White. He's definitely the guy that I'm leaning toward. But I don't think JCM is totally dead. He obviously is not going to be catching many passes, and that's why White is, more valuable. But I do think this backfield is, definitely something to watch. These guys are cheap, so, take some stabs. I don't think, if you're taking JCM in the 10th round, you're not really hurting anybody. White in the 8th round, not bad at all. To me, it's White, and, White's one of my highest known guys right now just for his pass catching ability.
White should be going up in the Chuba Hubbard, Jalen Warren range. I really don't know why he's not.
I don't know about that, but
why not? Why not? He's on an offense. He's on the Commanders' offense. If JCM isn't good, Katron Allen is a rookie, right? We saw what Austin Eckler did in 2024 out of the backfield.
Is Rachaad White that good?
He's not. No. He's 2 years removed from an RB5 overall season. He's proven he can handle a huge workload. He's great in pass pro. He's one of the best pass pro.
The great in pass pro is one of the keys there. He's so good. That's why, even though he's not good,
people think he's just going to be a third down back on this team. He's not. He's going to run between the tackles. He can handle the workload. They're going to play who they trust. They need to protect Jaden Daniels.
Scott, any thoughts on the Commanders' backfield before I move on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could hold a candle for JCM. Obviously not a ton of pass catching upside, but he is a better fit for that offense that wants to run the outside zone scheme. He led all running backs in yards per carry and outside zone, and that's what you keep hearing this offseason is they want to play more outside zone. And I like Rachaad White. I like him more. I like his PPR upside. But I personally think it's going to be a committee where JCM probably leads the backfield in carries and Rachaad White leads the backfield in targets.
Scott, we actually had an extensive discussion on Cam Scattaboo on our show with Ian Harditz covering the Baby Gorilla on Tuesday. Joe King wants to ask you, what's your take on Cam Scattaboo?
I'm rooting for him, man. I'm rooting for it. So, like, if I knew with 100% certainty he were fully healthy, I'd be taking him, I don't know, a round or two before where he is and like have 100% exposure. But this is an injury where I talked to all my friends who are injury experts, and they're saying he's not going to be 100% full effectiveness at any point this season. And so even if you have Harbaugh saying, he's our guy, this team lives and dies with Cam Scattaboo, and we're going to lead the league in carries, and it's all Cam. And by the way, he's a much better fit for this. So per sources, Greg Roman is basically the run game coordinator. He has more responsibilities than that, but he's not allowed to say that. He has some like fake title because he's still on the books with Los Angeles, still paying him. And so it's going to be a man gap heavy back offense, rushing attack, which if you look at fantasy points data, the yards per carry, the success rate, the EPA per run, Scattaboo in man gap was one of the best running backs in football last year. Tyrone Tracy the last 2 years, one of the worst. So he's a better fit for the offense as well. But again, just that injury, it's just you have a heightened injury risk where it's not just re-injury, but it's compensatory injuries. And then limited effectiveness. So I don't know. I haven't talked to my injury expert friends about Scattaboo in a couple of months. Maybe they've changed their tune, but unfortunately, this is probably a good range. Maybe still a slight value, but yeah.
Real quick, we're going to take a quick pause in the action, play a couple of my required ads I got to do, and then we'll get right back into our live draft coverage. As always, drafts are filling every single day here at FFPC. We got, for $125 entry, we got the best ball tournament. We got the Baby Gorilla. $350 entry, we got the Big Gorilla with $1 million grand prize. And obviously, as you guys are watching tonight, the FFPC Main Event, $2,200 entry, $1 million on the line, $6.5 million in the total prize pool. Terp, I'm going to ask you, take a minute to look it over. We're over halfway through this draft. What teams are calling out to you? Not even good or bad, just in general. And any strong thoughts on any of these teams so far? And Jake, Scott, I'm going to ask a question to you. Any builds that you think you're hating on? Any builds that you're loving so far? Who's winning this draft? Who's losing this draft? Any thoughts looking at this board?
I think team one is very suspect. Obviously, you get the gift with Jahmyr Gibbs. Derrick Henry, to me, is good there. Rice. Obviously, the unknown, but the upside's fine. But then after that, you kind of fell off the cliff. Irving, no.
I love the 101. This
Neighbors,
is draft right here. This is a swing
Kittle,
for the fences.
no.
Rasheed Rice with his suspension risk. Get that little disc out. Malik Neighbors with the injury concerns. But, hey, he could be a late season hammer for you if you're chasing that $1 million grand prize. Love George Kittle. Love Dallas Goedert, who I already talked about. Last year's Exodia quarterback. He's going in round 7. So that looks like a value. Michael Wilson, hey, what if it's a meritocracy, right? Stephon Diggs, who top 5 in yards per route run. I think he's still got it, guys. And so this is textbook,
first or last team.
This is textbook Scott Barrett drafting. I didn't like Bucky Irving. Derrick Henry's meh, but everything else was great. Who drafted that? Was that a B-Bag Batoba team? Because that would not surprise me.
No, that is Headhunters, but I can tell you it is not.
I feel like he's in every one of these.
He is not in this one, though, from that I know of. It's not AB. The headhunters there. Jake, any team builds outside of the mentioned ones? We got some love in the chat for team 11, 8, and 12, or just to shout out some ones that the chat is loving. But
I'm a big fan of team 3.
4 receivers to start. Yeah.
I like receivers. I'm more of a receiver guy than a running back guy, but I like how they started Chase, London, Olave, Burden. I think they filled the running backs well with, Jughead, Stevenson, White. I'm a big fan of Laporta, big fan of Purdy. And then I like the Sopranos team. I would have liked to see them grab a better RB3, but I like, the start up to Chig. Team 1 is just, I agree with Terry, very suspect, just, shoot for the moon, I guess. But I would be curious to see if that's a high volume drafter, because then it would, make more sense. But the other teams are pretty balanced, I would say.
All right. Questions are coming fast and furious. AJ Pierce for you, Scott. Hampton is all I can think about. Well, sure. He's drafting 7th in a 12-team PPR, 2 running back, 2 receiver, 1 flex. Would I be crazy to take him at 7 over Amon-Ra? He's not making back to me like 3 weeks ago. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's crazy. I don't even really love. I don't even really love where he went in this draft. I think that was too early. I certainly see the appeal, the excitement of a Mike McDaniel's backfield since Mike McDaniel, became a run game coordinator for the 49ers till today. His backfield always leads, or he ranks above any offense or coach in EPA per run, and he did that with like almost all UDFAs and round 7 running backs up until Devon Achane. And that's exciting, but he also likes a committee backfield. He also, put wanted posters on the GM's door for Keaton Mitchell, which is like not a joke, is actually something he did. And maybe he sees Keaton Mitchell as like Devon Achane light. I think it's fair to question whether or not that's a back who can withstand a dozen plus touches in any given game. I don't even know that he's ever had a dozen touches in any game, but that's a concern. It's also like, is he a good stylistic fit for Mike McDaniel's offense? Which, like, look at how many times both he and Kyle Shanahan have drafted a running back day 2, and then it's the round 7 or UDFA who turns out to be the really talented guy or the leader of the backfield. I posed this question to Brett Whitefield on our show together, which we do every Friday live. I said, is Omarion Hampton a good fit for Mike McDaniel's offense? And he goes, I don't know. And it's because last year, before the injury, he did not look good. Brett was very high on Omarion Hampton coming out, but he did say he lacks creative vision and he lacks the one cut and go, but everything else is amazing. And then you just really saw that on the film last year. And so I don't know. But again, the upside, Chargers offense is going to be sick. I flew out to New Jersey and I only made 2 bets, and it was Chargers to win the Super Bowl, Justin Herbert to win MVP. I might change that today, but I certainly see a ton of touchdown upside a ton of fantasy upside for a guy who, don't forget, was like a really great pass catcher in college, really talented runner. But if this is a little too, certainly 7 overall. I can't get on board with that. And even early round 2, I think, is a bit high.
Terp, I gotta talk to King 2 Icon. Question for anyone: does Geno Smith help Garrett Wilson become a top 8 receiver in 2026?
This should be a Jake question because I know where he stands here.
All right, well, then we'll give it to Jake then first, and you can go. Jake, I do just want to preface this. Garrett Wilson obviously got hurt last year, but in the weeks that he was healthy, he went 22.5, 9, 24.4, 20.2, 19.1, and then 4.3. So what are your thoughts on Garrett Wilson with Geno?
I talked about this last podcast. I think that Geno Smith is probably the best quarterback that Wilson's had.
Poor guy.
At this point.
Brutal.
Which
brutal.
But
he's inherited the mantle from DJ Moore to Terry McLaurin, now to Garrett Wilson.
I mean, we saw what Geno
he gets
did from 2022 to 2024 in Seattle. He was supporting, Lockett and DK and JSN. right? Last year, I'm just going to chalk it up as like, one of his first couple years, just a bad year. But I think that, now he's on the Jets team he started with. I think Wilson's a lock, assuming he stays healthy for 140 plus targets. Supposedly in OTAs, they're already working on their connection. There's not any crazy competition around him. I don't think Sadiq is going to, have a full-time role to start the year. I do like A.D. Mitchell. I think he's a good dart throw at the end of drafts, but I mean, the guys that get drafted around Wilson, Ted, Pickens, Devonta, I like all them. I just think, Wilson's target share is definitely going to be there. And I mean, I'm high on him, as you guys know.
I mean, as this, again, utterly dysfunctional offense. In the weeks he was healthy, I mean, there's going to be those stinkers as it is with the Jets. But, I mean, he did deliver some legit high upside weeks. Turp, what are your thoughts on Wilson? I do want to get to you.
I mean, I love Garrett Wilson as the player. I don't really Geno Smith is probably the best quarterback he's had so far. Am I going to pound the table for Garrett Wilson? Probably not. It's still the Jets. It's still a team that, at the end of the day, is trying to get a top quarterback prospect in here. It's not going to be Geno Smith. They're not trying to win games. They might act like they are, and they might have built some nice draft picks here and there with Sadiq and obviously Omar Cooper. They're starting to get the process going. I don't love Aaron Glenn as the leader of all this.
I don't like Frank Reich as the player.
I definitely don't like Frank Reich and anything to do with all this. So when it comes to Garrett Wilson, will I have some? Yes. If I had one team, would I draft him? No.
Scott, what are your thoughts on the Jets as well? Because again, you're trying to support two guys getting drafted consistently in the first 3 rounds in Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. And then everyone seems to understand the Omar Coopers, Kenyon Sadiqs, A.D. Mitchell, who you mentioned. There's a lot of guys later in drafts who a lot of people like as a dart throws, but there's just so many questions about the quarterback, about the play call, or the coaching staff as a whole. Do you see Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson both returning their top 3 round value with the potential for just another disastrous Jets offense?
I'm probably neutral on them, but kind of bullish on the Jets as a whole. Obviously, it's hard to be as bad as they were last year and not be an improvement. But yeah, this is the best quarterback that Garrett Wilson's ever had by far. And Geno Smith, for all his faults, can be an excellent point guard in this offense, checking down to Breece Hall, throwing deep to Adonai Mitchell, and peppering Garrett Wilson with targets, and then 2 really good tight ends to create mismatches. The thing with Geno is he's the most pressure sensitive quarterback in football. I said he's the type of guy who's next in line at Chipotle and starts stuttering. But you look at his EPA per dropback splits with pressure, he's the worst quarterback by orders of magnitude. And then with no pressure, he's middle of the pack to fringe top 12, certainly by the accuracy metrics, top 3. And so a lot is hinging on this Jets offensive line here is really what it is. I forget where we had them, but I think it was maybe fringe bottom 12.
Not great. It's not great. I'll tell you that. It's not great.
Yeah, okay. So aggregate had them 18th, consensus 18th. We had them 28th. So yeah, not great.
Scott, do you want to hear a text I just received?
Sure.
This guy invented the Post-it note. He's got to be so rich. He looks too young. What am I missing? just flew over my friend's head.
Yeah, sorry. I like to whenever it gives me that option, I can't resist the urge to claim I'm the king of Liechtenstein or the inventor of the Post-it note. So it's not true. I apologize.
Last question from you, not the last question for you, Scott. Last question from you, John. David, for you, Scott, is thoughts on Trey Tucker this year?
Devil's advocate is he scored 50 fantasy points in 1 week, and that's really hard to do. And anyone who's ever done it is really good. But no, I'm a Jalen Naylor guy. Love to see the 2 ass gods going back to back. For those who don't know, Fantasy Points Data has a stat, average separation score. It's the most predictive wide receiver stat if you control for playing time, which is insane. The most predictive non-production based stat out there. And an Adonai Mitchell, Jalen Naylor are 2 guys who specifically on deeper routes, specifically against man coverage, are apparently two of the best separators in football. And so those are guys I kind of root for. But yeah, I mean, the Raiders, paid a lot of money to Jalen Nailor. The way they're talking about him, they see him as, maybe not a true wide receiver one, but just, by circumstance, the wide receiver one of the team. And so I see more upside there with Nailor, I think, than Trey Tucker, who's just like a 5'8" guy who is really fast.
Yeah, and he's fucking sick.
When does Mendoza start?
I think Kubiak, they're going to take their time. I'm going to say week
10.
Yeah, I was saying week 8.
No,
I like that. I think that's
I
right.
could see him sit I could truly, unless it's just truly awful, which I don't think it will be. I think he could sit most, if not all, of the year. I think he needs time.
It has to be a specific type of awful. Like if it's just the offensive line can't block, you don't want to put him out there. But if it's just Kirk Cousins has time and he's just like a statue and he's just throwing to a mile over his receivers, then yeah, you might want to put Mendoza in there. And again, it depends on a lot of things behind the scenes we're not privy to, like how quickly he's picking up the offense. The dude is brilliant, so you never know.
I feel like looking at it, they got a week 13 bye. Although week 10 is the Seahawks. They go Niners, Seahawks, Broncos. So maybe you give him week 12 at the Browns. Then there's a bye. And then he goes Chargers, Broncos, Titans, Cardinals, Chiefs to end the season.
That makes sense.
Week 8 is the Jets. I don't know. I think they should play cautious. I mean, that if you're signing Kirk, too many teams have just in the past, sign the veteran and then just give up on it in a couple weeks.
I agree, Aiden, with the week 12. I think you said let him play at the Browns, right? And you have the bye. You give him 2 weeks to go over film and correct some issues, and then you just roll with him the rest of the year. I wouldn't fire him out there against the Broncos or Seahawks.
Yeah. No, I think somewhere double digit. That's my answer. Double digit week.
I hope it's week 1.
Here we go. I had a question and I lost it. So I guess I'll just move on. Terp, I wanted to ask you a question. Here it was. Jackson Dart, we talked about extensively last show, and QB 15, round 13, amazing value, but Team 2 drafted Josh Allen. In a managed format, if you're drafting Josh Allen, should not be taking a second quarterback, even if it's a fantastic value, correct?
I'm not saying you don't take a second quarterback, but I'm not taking Jackson Dart there. I mean, I guess 13th round you could do worse, but Tank Bigsby, Coker, Trey Tucker, Nailor, AD Mitchell, Jaden Blue. I mean, just giving you guys that are drafted right around him or after him. I'm taking all those guys over Dart. At the end of the day, you're spending the capital on Josh Allen. That's been a hot topic on these shows. When it comes down to Josh Allen versus 7 rounds later, Trevor Lawrence type of situation, you're spending that capital on Allen. He's your guy. Let's just call it what it is. If he gets hurt, you're probably going to be in some trouble. To me, taking Dart, even though you love the rushing ability and all that stuff, I'll just wait and just take Baker Mayfield or take Malik Willis or somebody like that 2 or 3 rounds later, and just if you really need to take a backup. But if it's me, I'm just taking Josh Allen and then just putting all my eggs in that basket. You're spending that capital on him. You're never clicking the Jackson Dart button. So to me, it's just go all in with Allen. And if God forbid something happens to him, you just try to piece it together, because it's just you're spending a lot of capital and you're putting yourself this team right here. I can't see the top half of the team, but the receiving room is not very good. Obviously, I love Christian Watson. He's my stand. Jordan Tyson. There are some questions there. Marvin Harrison, a lot of questions. Chris Godwin, love the player, but still some questions. But Nico Collins is up top. But tight ends are not great. Juwan Johnson, Schultz.
Yeah, Bijan, Nico, Bruce.
AJ Barner. Who you clicking that button every week? That's a tough click.
I don't mind any of those names. Those tight. I think for the build he did and that he kind of locked himself into, you could do way worse and the 3 tight ends he chose. I know it's not going to be fun, but
it's going to be a nightmare. I mean, Greg Dulcich, I would take over every single one.
Well, he like his wide receivers, like he could have different opinions on Tyson and Harrison, which is why Scott, it was good that you're on the podcast because you have different opinions on players like A-Chain and Ladd and Devontae Smith. A lot of people are just on them, but you're like, or you're off them, and you kind of are going a different way, which I like. It's good to hear different opinions.
Yeah. I will say also another right next to them to another interesting one. You take Drake May, and then you stack Gibbs with Jared Goff instead of you have Neighbors and stacking him with Dart if you were going to take that second quarterback there from Team 1. So a couple interesting quarterback decisions there.
There's been a lot.
I mean, look at Team 10 over there. Nix, Shuck, and Malik Willis after, waiting.
How do you click that button every week? This isn't best ball. Best ball, great, awesome. You take all 3 and somebody's going to go nuclear. But in a managed league, it's just so much
But you
more
can't
difficult.
trade either.
You can't trade. You're tying up a roster spot for some upside running back or maybe like a tight end type of situation that could break out, or a free look guy.
Yeah, Scott, what are your talk with the injury experts? What are they saying, or have you discussed with them Bo Nix's foot, ankle, whatever?
I don't know that I brought that one up. I don't even remember. I think it was kind of just like everyone assumed he'd be back to 100% by week 1. Is that not the case?
No, it is. It's just, fractured right ankle. He had another second procedure in April to remove bone spurs. He's on track for training camp. But, I mean, he is a guy with sneaky rushing potential, scrambling ability. It's not his first injury to that ankle. And people are projecting kind of, a more maybe consistent year. He had a solid year, but it wasn't the most consistent. They added Jalen Waddle. I think he's an interesting one where we talk about guys rightfully so with injury concerns. He's just one that I was wondering if you had any thoughts or heard of, because he is a guy coming off a very late season injury, but I assume he should be okay. And I think his is more standard. But I want to ask you guys a question from the chat. And Scott, you had brought him up and kind of briefly mentioned your love for him. So I want to talk to you more in depth about it. Steelers receivers, Sean Green asking, what do you think about Pittman versus DK?
Yeah, I'm strongly Pittman over DK. Some concerns here that, the contract wasn't very high for Pittman. His numbers the last 2 years haven't been great. Maybe that's just injuries. But to me, assuming there's a chance Pittman goes back to being like the player he looked like 3 years ago, or even just like the upside of that combined with the fit for this offense makes me strongly lean Pittman. DK Metcalf has really struggled the last few years. His separation numbers are awful. And I think he is kind of who we thought he was when he was coming out of college, where you saw the insane speed score. He's a great deep threat and like an all-time bad 3-cone where he just kind of lacks that lateral agility. And what does a Aaron Rodgers offense want? Listen, this guy just wants to avoid sacks by any means necessary, get the ball out as quickly as possible. And that's really Michael Pittman's forte. So I just think DK Metcalf overrated, overpaid, and a bad fit for this offense. So sort of have to lean in favor of Pittman.
Jake, kind of this is me going back with what started with kind of the Ladd question, but are you surprised Deebo Samuel finished as wide receiver 25 last year, currently unsigned, going in kind of the 13th, 14th round? Keenan Allen finished wide receiver 29 last year, currently unsigned, and he hasn't been drafted at all in the main event over the last 2 weeks. Does that surprise you at all? That was just a very random thing I wanted to look up.
Yeah, I mean, the Allen one definitely surprises me, like that someone just wouldn't take a dart throw in the 20th round, especially when you're drafting guys like Tank Dell, who could be the wide receiver 4 or 5 on his team, right? I mean, I'm honestly hoping Deebo and Allen don't sign, because I think that if they do, it could be with the Colts, and I'm very high on Josh Downs, and I don't want to, have to pivot off.
Keenan Allen is not going to that team. I don't know.
I mean, Deebo, Diggs, or Allen.
Is there any Deebo? Has there even been any Deebo rumors? I mean, I'm assuming he's just waiting. He doesn't want to go to camp too. But like, where is he going to go? I mean,
I don't know why the Commanders just wouldn't bring him back. But
the top article is from the Times of India. saying that the Chiefs and Bengals have emerged. I mean, there's nothing.
I mean, Kansas City's got to get in some sort of talks here soon. With
some people are saying the Rams. I mean,
it's like it doesn't hurt really.
Yeah.
The latest I'm seeing, I mean, I don't think anyone knows. I don't think he has anything, but I'm seeing a couple of articles connecting him to the Rams. So, for whatever that's worth, I don't know. Scott, I want to ask you. I believe Jake brought it up earlier. The two Penn State running backs this year both had excellent college years, albeit very disappointing final years. Katron Allen goes to Washington. Nick Singleton goes to Tennessee. Both have opportunities in that backfield. Obviously, they're probably starting off as RB3. We talked about Rashad White. We talked about Bill Krosky, Merritt. In Tennessee, Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears. But can you foresee either of those rookies who certainly flash some impressive talent in college, developing and getting a role in either of the respective offenses? Katron Allen here goes in round 13. Nick Singleton just got drafted here in round 17. I just kind of wanted your thought on two of those Penn State backs. Those were two guys I liked coming out of the draft, but they didn't love the landing spot.
Yeah, not without an injury, I don't think. Two running back prospects I wasn't super high on, who both went, late day 3. I think Singleton's going to need a Pollard injury. Not really a Katron believer. So if it were me, I'd probably leave them undrafted in my own.
I don't even think Singleton would even have much of a role, even if Pollard got hurt. Dayball's been very high on Spears from what I've read from OTAs. He loves this Pollard-Spears combo. And I just don't even think that. I think Singleton's kind of like, a waste this year. Same with Allen. He needs like
lots of
they still have Jerome Ford, who people don't talk about. I mean, he's just a jag, but Allen needs a lot to go right for him to even get double-digit touches a game.
Scott, just in general, what are your thoughts on just the rookie running back class as a whole? Because we've had a couple of guests on who were just saying how disappointing it is. Obviously, loves landing spot with the potential of Carson Beck and just having a horrid offense, or comparisons to Genti where they finish with a solid season but no consistency week to week. Jadarian Price, obviously the George Holani rumors are floating, but people were kind of down on Price even before his landing spot as a potential first rounder. Is there any rookie running back that you're liking, or is it just kind of a rough draft class?
Yeah, it's probably only Price, and I think he's mispriced. I think Holani's mispriced. I think they're both pretty good values at the moment. It just there's just no one else, and they just took the guy round 1. I kind of think it could just be that simple sometimes. And it's an offense that just won the Super Bowl. When given the bell cow role last year, we saw Kenneth Walker go nuclear. My injury experts that I'm talking to think there's a real chance Zach Charbonnet doesn't return at any point this season, let alone return to 100% effectiveness. So yeah, I kind of like Jadarian Price.
I think he went in the 5th round. I think he went at the 5.
Maybe I don't like him. Maybe that's too high.
5'10", RB26.
Rich.
Are any of you guys at all buying this George Holani? Do you guys first? I think it's just classic.
I wouldn't say buying. I would just say where he's being drafted.
I think that's going to be there.
But I think it's worth the gamble on this somehow being true. Just when Holani goes round 15, and supposedly he's the starting running back week 1, right?
I mean, a free look guy too when you're thinking of the main event.
Yeah, I think that part of it is, maybe you get a couple serviceable weeks out of him before Price maybe takes a job where Charbonnet somehow miraculously recovers.
I refuse to believe that organization.
I just want to see how they deploy all of them in the preseason, who's playing third downs, who's running early downs.
Price is one of the names where it's a couple of big preseason highlights, and that ADP is going to
nuclear.
So how does this show work? Does this draft fill immediately because everyone wants to draft with you guys live and then watch it after the fact? Do they watch it live as they're drafting?
People are in the chat drafting, which is multitasking awesome. I can never do, and they're talking about specific picks. I mean, we'll have people ask us about their draft live, but yeah, we always list them, which is a great segue. Our next one is the 21st. We're doing a best ball tournament with Justin Herzig. And then July 31st, we are doing a Big Gorilla with Ryan Kramer, Sean Green from the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And we got some shows in August, including, I think it's our first time sharing it. We're working on the metrics side, but we're gonna do the chat is gonna draft for Terp in a best ball tournament.
Nice.
It's going to go off the railing, I'll tell you that.
It's going to be a mess, but I mean, tune in.
Whatever they pick, we're going to draft. It does not matter.
Yes, we're going to be running polls.
My money, everything will be go. Whatever the people in the chat say, if they say take, Josh Allen in the third round, I'm not going to be excited about it, but I'm going to click the button.
So
we're going to see how it goes.
Hey, let me give you guys a plug. FFPC
please.
is a sponsor, but even before they were a sponsor for Fantasy Points, I was always saying this is my favorite site to draft on, and it's still this is so much better than the best ball tournaments at other sites. It's my favorite format. I love that it's tight end premium. I love the double flex. I love the tournament style format where you can win $1 million grand prize. And so I love FFPC. If anyone's tuning in just for me and isn't familiar with this, I really recommend it. Whenever I have a sub who's like, I'm so addicted to fantasy, but I only have my one home league. I wish I had more. It's like, bro, you need to check out FFPC, draft a Big Gorilla. You're going to be addicted and end up drafting 20 of them. So yeah, shout out to FFPC. Just really love what you guys are doing.
Appreciate that. And I mean, as Jake can speak, we're constantly trying to, have more and more offerings for all players. Obviously, we have our $2 million tournaments, the Big Gorilla and then the main event. But, we introduced the Baby Gorilla this year. We want to give high stakes fantasy season-long tournaments at that $125 entry fee. We've got the best balls. Dynasty leagues in 15 plus years, not one league has folded. We have 2,200 plus dynasty leagues. Chop leagues we just introduced this year. For those who haven't seen, we introduced FFPC Player One, which is your draft starts instantly. It's against 11 smart CPU teams. It's a best ball league. If you win that league, you win the money. Draft can be done, Jake, 10 minutes is I think the quickest one. Literally just, and for those people who in the main event, when you're a draft pick, you get the early draft pick announcement that's coming at the end of this month. Hop into a Player One, from $5 to $350 entry. So you can essentially, and you can pick your slot. And you can kind of test out some various strategies that utilizes, the FFPC, the latest ADP within those draft rooms. So, we're constantly innovating. And Jake, I can't reveal anything, but we still have some more things that are in the works.
Yep, next year, something very good will be coming up.
Yeah, so we'll just tease that. So a lot popping. Scott, we thank you, but in that, we want to give you also a chance to bump all your stuff. You've obviously been presenting so much information, all the great things you guys are doing at Fantasy Points. So please, I know I'm doing a little bit early here in round 19. After this, I'm sure we'll maybe review the draft. But please, before we do that, tell us where we can find your work and all the tools and stuff that Fantasy Points has to offer.
You can follow me on Twitter at Scott Barrett, DFB. All my work is at fantasypoints.com. We have some really cool things coming before week one. Don't want to really spoil it until it's ready. But you can be on the lookout for my draft guide, who my Exodia players are. For those who don't know, for those who aren't as nerdy as I am, don't get Yu-Gi-Oh references. Basically, this is just, you draft these 5 players, you could just log out after that. You just automatically win your league. These are the best 5 players, the best value in all of drafts. So check out my draft guide. Should be out early August.
Hell yeah. A must read. So just as we were talking about, Scott, Bay Victus in the chat, before we let you go, he said he was drafting out of the 5 spot. So looking at here, let me try and get my screen cooking. 5 spot, he starts Puka at the 105, who we talked about, Loveland, Jeremiah Love, David Montgomery, Basil Tudin, Parker Washington, Jonathan Brooks, Alec Pierce, Justin Herbert, Brenton Strange, and then a runner receivers, Romeo Dobbs, Rashid Shaheed, Trey Tucker, A.D. Mitchell, Alvin Kamara, Jordan Love, Deshaun Stribbling, Colby Parkinson. Baltimore defense, assuming we'll take a kicker. Not assuming we'll take a kicker there in the 20th round. So Vay Victus in the chat asking us his thoughts, our thoughts on his draft out of the 5 spot. Scott, I'm going to start with you. Your thoughts.
I don't really like it. Sorry.
That's why they draft. They want our honest takes. I love it.
So you got some of my guys, but you also got a bunch of guys I'm almost entirely out on. You, certainly at cost. I think you overdid it with the running backs a little bit. It's not terrible. Maybe just for comedic timing, but yeah, it's not my favorite. Like I said, I liked 101 a lot. A couple others above this as well.
Terp, your thoughts on Victus out of 2 thumbs down from Terp.
Really? I'm just looking at, Loveland in the second. I'm not crazy about tight ends early, but
the receiving room is just.
If they went Chris Godwin over Alec Pierce, I would have liked it a lot more.
Yeah, it definitely would have been better. The running back room I don't love that much either. I don't really draft much Jeremiah Love. Montgomery
I'm not big on Love, but he probably was the best running back available.
Alec Pierce is your wide receiver 3.
He's a full fade.
I kind of feel like Trevor Lawrence went in the 11th round. He took Herbert, and I guess stacking is relative, but if you have Basil Tudor, Parker Washington, and Brenton Strange, that exhibits a clear belief in the Jaguars' offense. And passing on Lawrence there, I feel like.
I like Parker Washington. I'm a Parker Washington guy, but
I would have loved if he took someone else instead of Love there. Maybe Warren or one of those wide receivers. And that and then someone besides Jonathan Brooks, someone besides Alec Pierce, and outside of that, that's a really.
I don't
strong
mind
team,
his late receivers. I like Mitchell. I don't mind Tucker, Shaheed. Okay. Dobbs, okay, they're wide receiver 2s on their team. They're not really exciting. I would have probably took a little bit more upside. Yeah, it's just not for me.
I just think in the later rounds, it's better to take those upside running backs than wide receiver 2 3s in the offenses. That's why I like to get my receivers early, and then I'd rather take a flyer on someone like Marshawn Lloyd in the 12th than Omar Cooper or Jalen McMillan. I just think Jacobs gets suspended or goes down, Lloyd's probably the RB1 in that offense.
So I know Scott likes Team 1. It's very Scott Barrett build. Jake, any teams that come to mind when I ask you your favorite?
I like the Fantasy Sopranos team. They drafted a lot of my guys. I like their team a lot, and I still like Team 3. I like what they did at the back half of the draft, grabbing some upside receivers in Concepcion. I'm a big on Greg Dulcich. All the other ones are there's not bad ones that really stand out. The other ones are pretty balanced.
Terp, and any teams before we pop on out here? And also, shout out to this draft room. We got the draft done in 1:25. Excuse me, 1:25. 1:25 would be concerning.
That really cool.
That's a player 1 draft.
Yeah, that's a player 1 draft. But 1:25.
Team 8, again, I'm going to agree with Jake. I think is my favorite. A little biased there, but I also don't mind Team 2. Even with the early Josh Allen, if the receivers pan out, obviously I like.
Well, they have Christian Watson. They have your man crush.
Christian Watson is a favorite of mine. So yeah, they're probably my 2. I don't mind 11 either. Hey, did you freeze on us? Way to freeze very right at the end. Totally in a tough spot too. We'll wrap up there. I think there's 1 pick left. Was there 1 pick left? Are we in the 20th?
Does the board freeze too?
Yeah, I think everything froze.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we're in the 20th.
No, the draft.
He's returned.
Walmart connection.
Wait.
Storms.
There you go, bud.
There's storms outside.
Blame the storms for your lack of your microphone use.
Thankfully, it waited until the draft was done. So on that note, before more issues come, I'm going to get us out of here. Scott, fantasy points, we thank you. Thank you for the bump. We thank you for all the expertise. That's going to do it for us. We thank you to everyone who drafted, everyone who was in the comment section, popping questions off to us. We will be back on July 21st with Justin Herzig of Establish the Run for a best ball tournament draft. And we will see you guys then.
See you guys.
See ya.